Hello, Lisa Marie Kosas, founder of Global One Health. So far, I've addressed breathing and posture, as I think those are the two basic components that we need to be mindful of throughout our day and our week. Not just in exercise. Obviously, we want to be aware of those when we're training, but those are the two things I believe are probably the most important for affecting how we feel and move in our daily life on a daily basis. So today I want to address two very basic exercises that will help to improve core strength. They're very gentle. They can be done every day if you have the time, or even if you want to do them as a warm-up before your workout. I use both of them very regularly in warm-up and on my recovery days, or in my recovery days. So marching, also called knee folds in Pilates, and bridges, glute bridges. Very basic exercise, probably one of the most common training exercises out there. So let's start on our back. Both are done on the back. And what I want you to think about, now the whole reason why I started my video series with breathing and posture is because I think, again, as I mentioned in that video, you want to make sure that you know how to activate your core and breathe correctly, because you need to be integrating that in all of your exercises. So I'm going to start on my back. We're going to start with marching. And I also have a video on Dr. Emily's foot core sequencing drills. So we're going to use those drills in the exercises. So if you want more specific detailed information about those are in other videos. So marching. I always want to engage my core. So the key is I don't just want to lift up my leg into a march position. Okay, maybe I feel like I'm doing some hip mobility. I might feel my abdominal muscles tighten a little bit. The reason for exercise is not just to do it to get through it or check it off your list, okay, done for today, right? If you're going to invest your time doing it, you want to get the most value out of it. And that's where I come in, because I feel like that's really what's so important to me, is teaching with integrity and providing my clients and my students with the information they need to be successful and get stronger in a really forward direction and risking possible prevention of injury. So I don't just want to lift my leg up and down because I'm capable and I have the capacity to do so. I want to do all movement of my limbs, of any part of my body, in conjunction with my ability to think about what I'm doing, brain, central nervous system, as I've referenced before, and my ability to activate my core. So I'm lying on my back. My arms are kind of reaching. I don't just want to feel like I'm like resting on the couch. I'm exercising, therefore I want to be engaged throughout my whole body. So my arms are going to reach straight and long. I might feel my elbows slightly come off the floor. My palms, my hands are open and gently reaching my arms and shoulders towards my feet. I feel a little tension and energy in my arms. My palms are gently pressing into the floor. Will help me get a little bit of lat engagement. I always start with my foot core sequence drill, pat, right? I inhale into the belly. I exhale, I engage my pelvic floor, clock 12, 6, 3, 9. I tighten my abs. My tripod of my feet is already into the ground. I tighten, I press my 10 toes into the floor. I feel that core foot engagement. And then I go into my march, which is I lift my leg up into what we call chair pose. It's a 90-degree angle of my spine in relationship to my thigh at my hip joint, and 90-degree angle of my knee, so my thigh is vertical and my shin is parallel to my spine and the ceiling. I want to keep the engagement of my structure, and then I bring my leg back down. If I want to reset every time to practice the sequence drill, I can. I inhale belly, I exhale engage pelvic floor, abs, press toes, keep the engagement throughout those structures. I bring the other leg up into chair pose. I come down. Again, I can reset if I want to. Inhale belly, exhale pelvic floor, abs, toes pressing. I keep the core and the foot structures engaged. I come up into march. Now, if I want to build endurance in those structures, I'm going to bring my leg down. I'm not going to release the tension in my core, and I can go to the other leg, and I can then keep alternating through multiple reps, maintaining engagement. If I do that, I am increasing my muscular endurance, which is my ability to maintain a contraction in the muscular structure I'm using for an extended period of time. So that is the definition of muscular endurance. being able to maintain activation for an extended period of time. Now, I advise my clients, we all have our capacity of how much we can hold, how much we can tighten and activate. So if I want to maintain and build endurance, I want to try to, push the envelope a little bit to keep the tension. But once I get to a point where I can no longer keep tension, if I need to reset, I do want my clients to do it here. Then maybe they bring their leg down and they let their core go and their back starts to arch. And now they feel icky in their back, right? So I try to get my clients to be aware. Try to keep engagement in the transition of your movements and in the most challenging aspect of that exercise. If you need to reset, do it in a place where it's the safest, right? So here, right, when my leg is in the air, I'm going to have more support with all my limbs down. So here's where I would do my reset. Okay, so the goal is, right, keep tension in the core. The other thing is you might engage the core, lift the leg up, and then on the way down, you let it go, right? So the transitions are very important that you maintain engagement because you're training the body to have the core activate first. And I love how Dr. Emily talked about pre-activation, right? So you have to pre-activate the muscles before you do the movement so that the joint structures are supported in the movement. So waiting to lift my leg up and then activate my core, well, it's kind of too late then. So pre-activate before the movement. So that's the marching exercise. I'm going to show you another variation of it that's a little bit more advanced or a progressed variation. So the basic variation, one foot stays down while the other leg moves. The benefit of that is when you're doing the foot core sequencing drill, if I've just activated my core and I've pressed my 10 toes into the floor, I'm going to keep the down foot pressing into the ground while I lift this other leg up. And then when I put the other leg down to switch sides, now this leg is now pressing foot into ground. I'm maintaining the activation of my foot structure. So I'm fine-tuning the ability to maintain engagement in one leg down while one leg is up. Why is this important? This is a very, very gentle drill because, again, I referenced when you're lying on your back, you don't have gravitational compression on the spine. But the ability to ground with one leg into the floor while the other leg is in the air translates into gait because when I'm walking, I'm always on one leg versus the other leg. So you're training your core to activate in conjunction with your foot structure in a safe, gentle way, which is going to stick in muscle memory to then translate into standing exercises and gait, our ability to get from point A to point B. So the second progression of marching is once I'm in that basic position of chair pose, I maintain core engagement. I lift up the other leg to join it. Now both legs are in the air, which puts more load and demand on my core structure to maintain activation and to support my legs. Now I will feel quad activation in this position. That is natural. It is not, don't think it's strange that you're feeling your legs work. Ideally, you don't want to feel your quads gripping for dear life, working harder than your core, because then they could inhibit the ability to tighten here. So you want your core to work more than your legs, ideally. Now, if when you lift both legs up, you notice that you can see the back start to arch, right, and get my hand under there. If you can't maintain neutral spine and your back pulls off the floor, then you either need to pull your core in more to get your back more into the ground, and if you can't, then you're not ready for this double leg position. However, if you can maintain full activation of the core, you don't feel any stress in your lower back is gently pressing into the floor, right? So now you're in this chair pose position. You can do marching from here. Now one leg would go down and the other leg would stay. So you're actually working your core more in this variation because neither leg is ever on the ground. Now, the foot can make contact with the floor, but ideally, it doesn't need to, right? So I'm not really actively pointing and flexing my feet right now. I'm not talking about my feet in that context of ankle position, but I do want to sense that my foot may make contact with the floor. Again, in the transition, if you start to feel like you lose it, the further the leg gets from the body, then don't go that far down. You might have the ability to maintain the core in this position, but if you lose it as you transition away, then don't take the foot all the way to the ground. The first and foremost goal in marching, it's a core exercise. You want your core engaged. If you lose it, come out of the exercise, reset, however you need to, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you're not fully engaged, you're selling yourself short and that you're defeating the actual benefit of what the exercise is supposed to give you. So I could do either variation, one leg up, one leg down, or progression, both up, and then I alternate, okay? So the other thing I want to talk about is bridges. So there are two approaches to bridging. I can do a neutral spine bridge or an articulating bridge. So basically, one has spinal movement, one does not, but the ending position looks the same. So I begin on my back, legs bent, arms reaching actively towards my feet. I feel energy in the arms. I feel the tripod of the feet pressing into the ground. I inhale belly. Notice I'm always doing my foot core sequence drill. I exhale, engage my pelvic floor, my abdominals, I press my toes. Now, those are my intrinsic muscles, as I referred to in another video, the deeper stabilizing muscles. When I start to bridge, now I'm getting more global muscles turned on. Obviously, the glutes, it's a glute bridge. They should be the major workhorses in this exercise. I want to feel my hamstrings working. A lot of times clients don't, so we'll talk about that in a moment. So when I'm in the bridge, well, let's talk about the two types of bridges first. So a neutral bridge is great if you want to practice maintaining activation of the core in a neutral spine. I talked about neutral spine in my posture video, but neutral spine is the ideal postural position where I maintain the natural curves of the structure. So I'm going to move my arms a little bit out of the way so you can see when I take a neutral bridge, my hips come up, my hip bones are reaching straight up to the ceiling, and I've maintained the arch in my spine, but when I come down, I bend or hip hinge at my hip joints in the front, and I'm raising and lowering my pelvis up and down from the ground and my back, but I'm not changing the relationship of my spinal joints to each other. I'm keeping everything engaged in the core, in the back muscles, and I'm simply doing a hip hinge lying down, right? So there's no movement within the joints of my spine. An articulating bridge is the opposite. I want to articulate through as much of the joint structures of the spine as possible. So I begin with a posterior pelvic tilt or a tuck position. I inhale belly, engage pelvic floor, abs, press toes. I start by going into a posterior tilt. At this point, my pelvis is still on the floor, but my tailbone is now curving upwards towards the direction of my knees. My lumbar spine is pushing deeper into the floor. And then after I'm in the tuck position, I already have my glutes engaged. I peel up the spine one joint at a time, trying to imagine that my spine is a pearl necklace or a string of beads. And as I roll down, you're going to notice I'm trying to roll down joint by joint through the thoracic spine, my lumbar spine, my sacrum at the base touches, and the last point of contact is my tailbone. I release to neutral spine. Here's my hand, right? So I inhale belly. I exhale, engage pelvic floor, abs, toes. I posteriorly tilt. Glutes are already engaged. As I go up, I peel up my spine. Now, whether I go up articulating or neutral, as I mentioned, the end position of the bridge is the same. I don't like to have my shins too far away. I like having the shins in a more vertical position. I can get my ankles stacked under my knees. It gives me a little bit more support and stability through the lower leg structure. It enables me to get more glute activation. So my core stays engaged. My feet are just on the ground. They're pushing through the ground. And you'll notice, if you really think about driving your feet further into and through the floor, you will feel more glute activation. It's physics. So the more energy you have pushing down, the more energy and force production you can have to push up. So if my feet are driving into the ground, it enables me to get more hip drive forward through. Now this is going to be an important, right, movement in so many things. Hip hinge, that is the precursor. This is the precursor to deadlifts, squats, kettlebell swings, and so many exercises. Own this position. Glute bridges are a fantastic warm-up, fantastic exercise for recovery days. They should be part of your routine, part of your programming. So how do I get my hamstrings to work? I want to squeeze my glutes, get myself into my bridge. Now, if I think, now I'm not going to move my feet around. Once I'm in position, my feet are anchored, pushing through the floor. What I want to do to get more hamstring activation is I want to imagine, you're going to see how I shift a little bit. I'm trying to think about actively pulling my heels towards my glutes, towards my butt. that will help isometrically contract my hamstrings more. Then I'm working the whole lower leg structure, the whole structure of the lower extremities. Upper and lower legs are your lower extremities. Right now I'm getting much more hamstring activation. Keep the glute tension. Again, don't think it's only I'm going to work to go up into the bridge and then I relax. The coming down is not a relaxing phase. It is the eccentric phase, the lengthening phase of the muscle tissue in the back. I want to keep the tension as I lower down. If I cannot maintain tension and do multiple reps, if I'm going to release it because I need a break or I'm fatigued, I release it here. I re-engage pelvic floor abs, foot pressure. Then I take my bridge. I keep tension on the way up. I keep tension at the top. And I keep tension as I lower down. So that will set you up for the most success. Again, marching, 2 variations that I did today, the basic and the more advanced variation, and the 2 types of bridges. Great exercises for core, great exercises for having some little hip mobility, glute activation, especially if you're sitting all day. You want to get your glutes strong and be able to open up the anterior front of your hip joints. If you're seated, spending a significant amount of time in a seated position, you want to lengthen that front hip structure and that muscle tissue as much as you can to offset excessive sitting. So those are the 2 basic drills for today.